All right, friends. So welcome to our first session about what is a human. Hold on one second. I just here.
I know. I said
Here.
it's yeah, his friend Stacy, who's recently joined.
So
Who's converted.
before we start though, I want to
That's so dark.
so if you're at home, put yourself on mute until you talk.
Please.
Or until you want to be heard, or I'm putting you on mute. So it's hard to learn with joy at this time for Israel, and at the same time, learning is what Jews do. And every act of I don't want to have to say it this way, but every Jewish act is an act of defiance. And so, with that, we're learning Torah it can be also an act of defiance. But I want to start tonight with the prayer for the state of Israel. Avinu Shabbat Sur Yisrael B'Go'alo Berech Et Medinat Yisrael. Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love, spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Let us say, Amen.
Amen.
And
Amen.
from Psalm 122, Shalu Shalom Yerushalayim, you Ohavayich, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you prosper. So how's everybody doing?
All week.
It's been interesting hearing from some of my Christian friends from across the country.
Yeah.
Thinking of you.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, I was walking the dog this morning, and a neighbor, non-Jewish neighbor, stopped me this morning and said that. So good. Anybody want to share anything about how you're feeling about what's going on?
I'm glad we went to Israel a few years ago because I'm
Good.
not ready to go back right now.
No, I know.
Well, I'm glad we went this year.
Good. Well, I will say it's always good to go. But I'm glad you went also. Good. So
Rabbi, I received very sad news that my peoplehood cohort, my partner, the woman I stayed with, who stayed at my house twice, and I actually stayed in her little girl's room. The little girl was 18 years old and guarding as a soldier one of the kibbutzes on Saturday, and she was buried yesterday.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I have friends whose kids are serving, but this is the first one that has died of my friends. Terrible.
Yeah, and a lot of people. Thank you, Tanya, and I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
A lot of people in our area know people in those kibbutzim that were attacked because our federation, Metro West Federation, supports a lot of projects in that area. So you would have heard the town of Ofakim was one of the towns that was attacked. A lot of us have been there. Kibbutz Erez, a lot of us have been there, was attacked.
Yes.
And so
That's where she was from, Mabulim, outside Ofakim.
Okay, thank you.
Mm.
All right.
Yeah,
So
Gary Aikman took us there.
what's that?
Gary Aikman
Oh,
took us.
right.
there.
And so friends, let's so again, let's it's okay to have joy when we study, and it's okay not to feel joyful right now. But even before we get to the text, I want to go around and ask you, you can introduce yourself, but and say why did you sign up for this class? Maybe just this class for the whole series. I hope you come for the whole series, but each one will somewhat stand alone. It's okay. So I'll start. Hi, I'm Rabbi Satz. I decided to bring people together, including Susan and Matt, to help us conceptualize this meeting, these sessions. One, because a colleague of mine runs this organization called called Sinai Synapses, which brings science education to synagogues. And then they have a program called Scientists in Synagogues, which we got into, right? And so, I've been reading about this organization for a long time, but really, what made me think that this was the right time to do it at B'nai or at least to apply to do it, is because science in our life right now, it seems like we're on the cusp of something new, right? Something new for humanity. Now, maybe humans have been saying that for a long time. That's part of what we're doing. But it seems to me, with medical advances, with AI, with things like that, it's really, we need to ask ourselves, or we need to always ask ourselves, what does it mean to be a human, right? And having and also, how can Jewish texts, Jewish thought, Jewish civilization, Jewish the wisdom of our ancestors, how can it help us approach the future with hope, right? And I think that's what I want to do this year, to help us approach Jewish texts so that we can live with hope, right? Now, maybe we decide we can't. That's okay too, but I want to approach Jewish texts because even though they were written, some of them written in ancient times, and we'll read modern stuff too, but even though they were written in ancient times, the question of what does it mean to be a human is a question we've always asked, right? And there's wisdom found in our ancestors, right? what I'm not trying to do, or what we're not trying to do, is say Judaism says this and science says this, or that, religion is one thing and, what I want us to do is live integrated lives. And it's not trying to reconcile the creation account with the Big Bang. You can't do that. But we live an integrated life, meaning we tell different kinds of stories based on what we're trying to do at that time, right? And how does the Jewish story, or the story told by our many texts, how does it inform the way we live through science, right? Does that make sense? So it's a little more subtle than, I hope it's more subtle than saying this is what Judaism says and this is what science says, or saying, oh, they're just totally reconciled, don't worry about it, right? Yep. Okay. You with me?
Yes.
Okay, good. So let's go around the room and then we'll go to the people online and say quickly, you can't give as big of an introduction as I gave, but say who you are and why you're here. All right? Shall we just go around?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay, I'm Dennis, Gail's husband. It sounded like an interesting topic and she kind of nudged me into it.
Very good.
To be fair, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm Gail. I thought so. Okay, I really can't make it as long as you. Okay, obviously there's the thing with AI has been part of the conversation right up front and center for recently, and that's a topic that has hit a lot lately, and I thought so that piece of it looked interesting. But in my daily life, when I'm counseling kids, young adults, the phrase, well, you're allowed to be human, comes up a lot. Like that you made a mistake, it's human, or you forgive somebody, it's human, you feel guilty, it's human, you're not perfect, it's human. So I think that the overall topic is just really interesting.
Thank you. Okay.
So I'm Katie's husband.
You have a name yourself.
This is Jason. Jason.
And I'm here, I think, primarily because I spend my day now pretty much advising on ethical and legal aspects of AI. So this seemed really interesting.
And Jason will be teaching in the spring, in the new year with us. So thank you.
I'm Joe Stringer. I'm Rita's husband. And I'm here because I find this interesting, the interface between science and religion, all kinds of questions pop into your mind. If we stay with AI, for example, is it really safe to teach a sophisticated AI system to be super religious?
To be super religious, oh, okay,
Wow.
interesting. Is it safe to teach humans to be super religious? Was it whatever super religious means? But- Sorry, I'm gonna stop, I'm refraining from commenting, so. Great.
Hi, I'm Rita Stringer, and I think the whole series just sounded interesting. AI hit me, of course, because we're all with that, and I find all of the scientific stuff for me sometimes, sorry, imagine the medical, the science, all of it a bit overwhelming in the sense of what it means for all of us, aside from religion. It's just the implications are, and then when I saw it combined with religion, which is difficult also
Mhm.
to
There's a
understand.
lot in common.
Right, how does that work? So it was more just an interest, a curiosity, and trying to find out more and spend some time thinking about it in some kind of way other than just me when I go, oh my God, sometimes to some of these things, but learning more and kind of helping with those two pieces and how to think, what do they have, what do they share, and what do they not?
Wonderful,
Okay.
thank you.
Mhm.
I'm Carol, married to Matt. I'm here in part because Matt is so passionate about the subject. I couldn't not be sucked in. But it interests me in its own right, and I think if we look at the phrase, what does it mean to be human? In light of what's gone on these last few days,
Mhm.
I just, that's been going through my head nonstop.
Thank you. And bring it to the text in a minute. Okay, good.
I'm Matt, I've been thinking about what I should say. Not so easy, but I guess I've been Jewish for a long time. And most of my career was spent in science. I think recently I've become more Jewish and science has been on the back burner. But I thought the subject was interesting and I'm pleased to be part of it.
Thank you.
I'm Gail Lobel. I sign up for everything, especially when it's taught by very smart people such as yourself
Thank you.
and the other participants who are very smart.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Ken gave you big when I was gonna say something similar. I sign up for all these classes. I like learning new things and I'm sure I'll learn some new things here. The subject interests me, but if you taught something else, Rob, I'd probably sign up too.
Yeah.
So talk to me next week.
Excuse me one second, so.
I'm Stephanie Fenway. I signed up, I wanted to see what the topic was gonna be really about. I didn't want to assume. Then I thought it might have a lot to do with AI. And I, was coming off a long hold on the telephone for Verizon with the AI guy. And I was like, and they said that AI will make it faster or this, and I'm on the phone for 30 minutes and he's saying, can we get, and interest you in a new iPhone? No, I want to speak to the representative. Then he goes on to something else. And I said, so how is this better? So that's why I'm here. I'm like, what are they really going to be talking about?
Very nice. Good.
I'm Nancy Ellis, and I too signed up for a lot of things, but I'm always learning.
Good.
I am very pleased that you, Rabbi, have taken advantage of the expertise and willingness of different congregants.
Great.
Starting with Leslie and all the people here, and I think that's really great.
Thank you.
Sure, we like to hear from you, but this is a general thing, and
Well, and I want to hear from all of you, so.
yep, and well, I usually participate, but I'm not very medical
Yeah.
in my knowledge, so that's that. But I majored in sociology a long time ago, longer than you may think. So it all comes together sometimes. And
Right.
how does Judaism inform that, and how do I relate to it?
Good, thank you.
So I'm Susan Levinson and I'm here because I'm a science nerd.
Good. Well, I asked you.
Right, and I love to talk about science. I love to explain science to people who are not scientists. So anybody has a question anytime, I'm happy. I can babble on about science endlessly. More on the biology side, although I just joined a committee to look at AI a group that's a trade association for the New Jersey biotech industry, that we're starting an AI committee to figure out the implications for
Right.
biotech. So
Wonderful.
interested in that. But I want to say one thing about religion and science. So one of the things that people often don't realize is I think the two have something in common. There's always uncertainty about religion. People don't realize there's always uncertainty about science.
Mhm.
People think when you say a fact in science that it's a fact. It's always just a probability.
Mm.
And I think there's some commonality there to talk about.
Wonderful, wonderful. Is it? So, thank you. Everybody online here, everybody? Okay, so now we're gonna, I'm gonna go in the order you're on my screen. If, if you want to pass, you'll pass, but I'm gonna call on you. So Arlene, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Marlene Roth. I'm from Holy Blossom, where
Yes.
Rabbi Paz was. I find the topic fascinating. I think every new invention from the year dot has been challenged, and some people are frightened, and how are we going to handle it? And I think it's a process where we humans adapt, and not everything has positive outcomes, but we adapt and try to make the most of it. Sorry, I have some cake in the oven. So I signed up for.
You're in Toronto and you can't share it with us.
No. Sorry. Yeah, so I'm very excited about participating.
Thank you, thank you. Billy. You need to unmute.
Hi, I'm Philly Lieberman. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Excellent. Science is just coming up with, they're expanding their idea of what it does mean to be human. And I'm particularly interested in consciousness. And I am just really excited to explore this area and not contrast. I'm hoping that the Torah and Jewish philosophers can expand that knowledge for me.
Wonderful.
So,
hopefully, I will definitely try to get to talking about consciousness. Well, you got to stick around. Thank you.
Eric will.
All right. So the Simon Bassianos.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya Simon.
Good Spaciano.
I like to participate in things of interest through the temple, and science is not one of my areas that is part of my life, really, in the sense that that's not my professional life. And I guess I'm kind of thinking about what Susan said about science being, a gray area as well, because that's kind of my experience with science. But I am interested in the historical perspective of the religion on various science and how it impacts our lives.
Wonderful.
And maybe the historical impact from before that. So I'm excited to be here as well. Thank you for offering.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did you want to say anything?
No, that's good.
Okay.
Fair,
Thank
fair.
you.
All right, Jeffrey.
Hello. So I was invited by a friend with whom I, for the past couple of years, taught a course in high school. What does it mean to be human? Exploration through science fiction.
Oh, very good.
Where we looked at movies and television. From my own faith background, I am a Catholic. She's Jewish. One of our visitors was Rabbi Matt Gewirtz for years, who was a very interesting figure. We had him as part of a religious panel. We had an Episcopalian priest and an imam also on the panel, in addition to the Rabbi Gewirtz. And it's just a fascinating topic to me. Personally, I'm a high school science teacher and a science fiction junkie. So
very nice. Very nice. I took one of my favorite classes I took in college was basically this, I forgot the name of the class was, but it was basically this question and it was science fiction literature. So very cool. All right. Gay, it's your turn.
I am Dave Analik.
Okay. Sorry, Dave, you skipped ahead. I said gay, but you can
Oh,
go.
I heard Dave.
Sorry.
I heard Dave.
Sorry, you go, Dave.
Sorry, Gabe. I didn't mean to jump in. So I'm Dave Analik. Foundationally to who I am, science and technology is one pillar. Another pillar is Judaism. When I was young, I struggled. I saw them in conflict. I don't see them in conflict as much anymore, but I'm always interested in learning in that intersection between science and religion.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Now, Gay. Gay and Gary, you can.
Yes, excuse me, I'm eating my granddaughter's birthday cake.
Happy birthday.
I just came from. Yeah, I just found, when the topic was described, I found it very, very interesting. And I feel that the science that's going on now frightens me, to be honest. I'm so tired of picking up a phone, to speak to a human, and you never get to speak to a human. You speak to, I don't know what, a robot, a whole list of technical things before, you can even get to speak to a human being. And I think it's hurting humanity. It's taking something away from humanity.
That's definitely a question we'll be asking ourselves as we go along, right? Gary, you want to add?
Well, when I think of AI, I say, aye. Thank you. I'll be here all evening.
Thank you.
Well, it seems the subject dovetails very nice with my recent science-based spiritual pursuits. Buddhism. I guess I'm a budding Jew or Jew Boo, and so I'm all ears. I don't know what I don't know.
Good.
Right.
All right. Sharon, would you like to say hi?
Hi. I wasn't going to talk. I'm Sharon. I do your marketing and graphic design and PR here. I'm super interested in this series because I heard about it when it was originating and, marketing it. And I love science. I think the history of science, medical, I was pre-med when I started school, actually. Switched to anthropology. So combining science with religion was a lot of what my academic background has been. Fascinates me. AI scares me to death. And I'm also a big Star Wars and science fiction nerd.
Thanks. Very nice. So there's four screens without pictures on them. Should I call on you?
Yes.
Yes. All right. So Stacy, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Stacy Murata. I'm converting to Judaism. I would show myself, but not sorry. I think my husband's on his way in the door.
Yeah.
I signed up for the class because I'm interested in learning more about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Ellen.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ellen Levy, and thank you very much for including me.
Hi. So Lauren,
Can you hear me?
No, keep going, Ellen. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm very concerned about AI on many levels. First of all, I believe education in this world is well, in the United States has been dumbed down now for quite a long time. People think if they press a button, if they know what that is, they can get an answer rather than using their brains. And I'm wondering if AI is just going to complicate that. And the other thing is, like people get lazy. and they leave it up to machines. And this is my great concern. But I'm also interested in the Jewish take on it, because I have very little background on that, and I'm very interested in what everyone has to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, I'm Amy Herbiter, and I'm attending from out of state. And I thought the topic sounded the whole series sounded very interesting in terms of looking at definitions or ways of thinking about what is human in Judaism versus what is human in science, whether we're I assume biology. But there are some overlaps and there are some differences, and I'm very curious to hear about what kind of consensus we might come up with.
Thank you. Wonderful. And Christiane.
I'm Christiane. I have a certain dread of AI and would like not to be alone in my dread.
Hopefully you're not alone. We'll connect over the internet.
Also, if people could stop talking about cake, I would appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. Sure.
How clever of you to put AI near the end of this series.
Right. Well,
It's a big draw.
so I'm gonna. So the texts that are going around, you got to take the whole packet because the staplers was out in the printer, and I didn't know how to load the staples in it. So. All right, but it says the page numbers on it, so you should be able to figure it out. And I'm going to share a screen for the people online. So, friends, thank you for introducing yourself. Thank you for sharing what you're looking for, why you're curious, and I ask of you to stay curious, right? So tonight, how we're organizing the sessions as we go along, that I'm going to teach a class tonight on biblical notions of a human. And then in 2 weeks, right? I think it's in 2 weeks, I forget it. 2 weeks, I'm going to teach how the ancient rabbis then play with that from the Bible, right? And then we'll have 2 sessions on medieval, or 1 session on medieval and modern philosophy, focus on Jewish philosophy. And then we'll move on to actual biology and science, right? The science stuff, even though the philosophy will definitely be touching on science. And then we'll move to the future that is now, right? When we get to AI, but we need to have a vocabulary. We need to have a basis of conceptions to talk about the future, right? Or the future that is now, I like to say. Okay, so I brought some sources from the Tanakh. Tanakh, if you don't know, is a Hebrew acronym that means Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim, which is the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. The Nevi'im are the prophets, Ketuvim are the writings, right? And kind of like, I don't know, because my thoughts right now are still kind of random and I need you to help me systematize, I brought a bunch of random texts, right? This is not exhaustive, but I want to explore with you some ideas of what does it mean to be a human from the Torah, or from the Bible, right? The Hebrew Bible. And it's not exhaustive, meaning it's not, it's not every text that I can pull up, right? And it's not systematic either. It's just a bunch that I was thinking about. And also, they're plucked out of context. So if we need to, we'll pull up the whole text around it, right? But I want to get through a lot of stuff. We might not. It's okay. But also, I have to say, in the biblical world, actually most of the world until fairly recently, we don't have the same notion of the individual as our ancestors had, or even as our great grandparents had. The individual meaning, in the stereotype of the American sense of I am sovereign over myself and I can do anything I want, right? An individual is very much embedded in a history and a community and even with a relationship with God, which we'll see in the Torah, right? Does that make sense? And so I want us to read these as we are now, but also try to put us into what the biblical author might be trying to say, right? Okay. Now, we're starting with pretty much at the beginning of the Torah, which is this week's Torah portion. Okay. So the first text comes from the first chapter of Genesis. I don't put in the whole thing, let there be, and there was, let there be, and there was. We get to one kind of let there be there, okay? So, someone read, someone start the first text, and we may look at the Hebrew, but let's start in English, okay?
I can read.
Please.
And God created humankind in the divine image, creating it in the image of God, creating them male and female. God blessed them, and God said to them, be fertile and increase, fill the earth and master it, and rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and all the living things that creep on earth.
Okay.
That's-
So,
that's-
soak that in, but yeah, just.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's always struck me as strange because I think of God as incorporeal. So what does the image of God mean?
Right. So God is incorporeal, which means like not embodied, right? Not embodied. God is something beyond body. Well, I don't know if our biblical ancestors believe that, right? When you get to the medieval philosophy in a couple of weeks, you'll definitely talk about that. I don't know, definitely, but you'll probably talk about that. Eric's going to be teaching. I'm just going to be interrupting him, but like, I don't know if our biblical ancestors might have believed that God had a body, like the other gods of the world, the other peoples had a body. So let's think about bodies and what does this body mean? Okay, because that's important. Embodiedness for the Bible is very important, right? That you are a thing that takes up space, that has emotions and sense perceptions, and has holes that excrete things, and right, all of that is very important in the Bible, right? Okay, so let's look at this verse. So, okay, so before we dive in, what else do we see?
I appreciate the non-gender.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's trying. So this is a new translation of a new version of the Jewish Publication Society translation, but the non-gender is actually kind of trying to reflect what it actually says in Hebrew, because you don't have to say God is he, right? But we'll look at gender in a second. Gender, sex, right? Big debate today. Let's look at what the Torah says in the beginning, right? Okay. Good.
What struck me, okay. What struck me about it is interesting that you just kind of mentioned how important the body is and secretes and everything. Well, animals do that too.
Yeah.
But
how are we different? Yeah.
We are
The masters.
above them, and we're also in his image. We're endowed with an additional piece.
Good. Okay, image. What are the other animals that it talks about in this verse? What do they have to do with us?
Obey.
Are we one of them? Are we not one of them?
No, we
Right?
master them.
Okay, so good. So hold that thought. Matt.
That's basically what I was gonna say. I think this really does create a separation between humans and gods on one side. And then the animals and the humans have mastery over the animals.
Okay, interesting. Good.
A particularly green point of view.
Right. Well, we'll see another point of view in a minute. Okay, good. So let me point out some words in the Hebrew. Or anybody online have any comments? I see Arlene. You're gonna have to like unmute yourself because I'm sharing the screen. It's hard to see people all the time, but I did see your hand, Arlene.
So Adam
Yeah.
is being replaced by the word human. I mean, I understand that, but how did that come about? Like,
Good. So I'll walk through the verse and explain what I think is the important words, and I'll get to that. Thank you. Okay. So. Tanya just raised her hand. Tanya, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Just briefly, I was, I'm not an expert in the Torah, but the word master, the animals, I was thinking that that's kind of inconsistent or incongruous with other portions in the Torah that talk about kindness, not equality, but kindness. And it just made me think about that.
Good. Well, I'll touch on that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's look at these words. Vayivra Elohim et ha'adam b'tzalmo. And God created this God that's called Elohim, created et ha'adam, the human, right? So it says here humankind in the translation, maybe because later it becomes confusing what this humankind is, but the human is the most basic translation you could say of ha-adam, right? Not a proper name. It's a noun with a definite article, right? Okay, ha-adam. This word Adam, which we'll see later in another story, comes from, it's related to the same word of Adama, which means the earth. Okay, but that, so ha-adam b'tsalmo, I'll use a gender language, in his image, but in the divine image. Salmo, selim is a word that could also mean an idol, right? And so, this is the kind of a political reading of this, that in the ancient Near East, the God came and dwelled in the selim, in the idol of the God, right? So if we're in God's image, what does that mean? We are the idol, maybe we're the icon, but then also in some places in the ancient Near East, especially like Egypt, the Egyptian pharaoh was the incarnation of the God. So if the humankind is the incarnation of God, what does that mean? We all are. It's a democratizing. The political part is that it's all democratizing. We're all kings and queens, right? That I think that's there too. Okay. But it's definitely an embodiedness, or definitely, it might be an embodiedness, okay? All right, B'Tselem Elohim bara oto. In the image of God, God created it. I'm saying, not him, I'm saying it. Okay, Zachar Nikeva bara otam. Male and female, God created them. Same verse. It, them, it, them. It's confusing the pronouns. One, it's saying ha-adam is just one singular thing, but then saying it's a two thing, right? Okay. So what do we learn so far about what is a human? Just in one verse?
An embodied thing.
An embodied thing that can be male or female. I don't want to use this word gender yet, because we're like, but is this one human both male and female? That's actually how the later rabbis took it to see it. Maybe next session, maybe I'll bring that text. And so did the ancient Greeks had a myth like that too. It was found in one of Plato's writings, that the original creation was a hermaphrodite, right? Both male and female. Okay. This has come from the ancient times. This is not, what they're screaming about in Florida, right? Okay. All right. So male and female, but it could also mean sometimes in the Bible, and especially in Genesis, maybe when we see the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the extremes could mean everything in between. It's a rhetorical device to mean everything in between. So maybe male and female means this span of things, right? I think that could be read into that. Like, I think our ancient rabbis even read that a little bit, right? Okay.
So if we want to modernize this, we could use the pronoun they.
They, for sure, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't think I'm being radical. I think I'm just reading.
No.
But doesn't the word Adam have the article of the male and the end
No,
of the
the
male?
article is
About that?
the direct hey, the hey is neutral for everything, but in Hebrew, nouns are gendered,
Right.
but it doesn't mean the shulchan, the table, is a masculine noun, but there's nothing masculine about a table. Right.
But I mean, are you splitting hairs?
But no, because the closest thing Hebrew has to a neuter word, it doesn't have a neuter word, meaning like in German, mensch means a human, right? It doesn't mean a man, it means a human, right? But Hebrew doesn't have that, except Adam is pretty close. Because you say B'nai Adam, even though it says children of, sons of Adam, B'nai Adam means humans, it doesn't mean men, right? There's different ways to say specifically men. And that's why, even though Hebrew is very gendered, but there's different ways that you can be more specific by saying men.
So is that reform,
No.
more, like would a
I'm
conservative?
just trying to be,
No,
read the Hebrew.
would an Orthodox rabbi say the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, they could,
Oh,
they
would
could, they
they?
may not because of different kinds of ideologies, but
I
they could,
know.
because they know Hebrew and they know what the rabbi said later about the original human being a hermaphrodite. Right? They know that text, right? It's very well known. And so
if we wanted to emphasize the difference, the powerful, etc., of God, the all-knowing, etc., of God.
Yeah.
even they doesn't work. And unfortunately, the word that comes to my mind is it.
It for God.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It is something, the God in Genesis 1 is something that's outside,
Mhm.
right? I didn't bring the rest of the chapter of like, God creating and declaring and things like that. But yeah, the God, it's we don't learn how the creating seems to come from, for a lot of things, come from nothing, right? So it seems like the God's outside of nature, right?
Like the universe.
Yeah, right. Outside of the universe, it seems like, yeah. Okay.
The word for God in this one is Elohim. right?
Elohim, correct.
Yes, not the,
Not Yod Hey
yeah,
Vav Hey,
right, so
right?
doesn't that also kind of degender it a little bit?
Mm,
Because of.
No, I mean, Elohim's a male gender,
But it's multiple. or-
but it's also multiple, but it's more confusing there, which will be a different class.
Okay, fair enough.
The Elohim's a plural noun, but it uses singular verbs.
Okay.
So, it doesn't mean plural gods. Yeah, okay, good. So now we keep going. We're still only on, now is the second verse. But
I'll offer a point of comparison. If
Yeah.
the Catholic Bible translates it mankind, and Catholic Mass and prayers also treat God. Well, we talk of the triune God.
Yeah.
So, but
right, and so that won't fit into what we're talking about, but
which
like,
is
I
not
don't
what
like,
you're talking about.
but I don't
also-
like to use the word mankind because when mankind was the neuter word in English, it didn't actually include women. That's
Yeah.
right. Because it said women, because when people use mankind as the neuter word, meaning it's for everybody, it meant that some women can become substitute men, but most women are below men. That's what it meant. And so humankind is the word we use.
Okay.
Yeah.
In future sessions, we'll talk about evolution.
Yeah.
Does this essentially say there is no evolution?
Well, I don't think that was the question that our ancestors had because they
They
didn't
seem to separate the beasts and the creatures
from the human.
Humans.
I see. We're not descended from the animals. Okay. They didn't have the question of evolution because it wasn't until Darwin, I mean, there were people before Darwin, but it wasn't until Darwin who put all the pieces that came before them together. Like science builds upon itself, right? So our ancestors didn't have the same scientific questions necessarily that we have. But they're not trying to tell a scientific story either. I think that they're trying to tell what's our place in the universe story.
But they don't have the conception of science, post-enlightenment
Well,
science.
post-enlightenment, right? But I mean, they weren't, the people who wrote the Bible weren't reading Aristotle, but Aristotle had a sense of experimentation and observation and things like that. And like our ancient Israelite ancestors were watching the phases of the moon and knew the seasons and how to grow plants. And like, it's not exactly what we call science today, but they had a sense of,
Science.
yeah, right.
Yep.
Our ancestors, I'm gonna say this every time. Our ancestors were just as smart as we are, but knowledge builds upon itself, right?
Also, the point about pushing a button, it might have been smarter.
Right, and all people all over the world are just as smart as we are too, right? But this is our literature, right? We're looking at Jewish. Okay. So God blessed them by Baruch Elohim, and said to them, "Pru is like be fruitful and multiply." Okay. So be fertile and increase, it says here. Fruitful and multiply is, the classic phrase. So back to what Jason said at the beginning, humans are embodied. And what do? We make more bodies. And so do the animals, right? But we do that too. Like God created the first ones and we keep doing it, right? Now, this is different than other ancient Mideastern texts, because like in Babylonian myths, the gods get mad that there's too many humans, and the Israelites, who are very small people who are beleaguered by big empires, what do they say?
Go create more humans.
Go create more humans. Yeah, we need more of us, right? Okay, so now here we get to this part. So fill the earth, the kiv shuha, and I mean like conquer it. Take dominion over it, right? Yeah. Okay. So we all read, well, how do we all read that?
Rock.
We rock. We are, so let's put, okay, we're great. We can do anything. That could be what it means.
We're in charge.
We're in charge. Why are we in charge?
Because we are in God's image.
We're kind of God's people on earth. We're God's creatures on earth.
Is there any connection there to the role of agriculture in enabling more dense settlements and mastering the earth rather than being hunter gatherers?
Yes, also like especially when you read Cain and Abel, which comes after this, and then the next story in the Garden of Eden, things that's definitely in there too. Like the Bible's it's never a hunter-gatherer polemic in the Bible, but the Bible's playing farmers versus shepherds a lot, you know, like in Oklahoma, right? I bring that up a lot, right? So yes, that and civilization, you know, Cain is the one who finds a city, you know, he's the murderer, and city, you can't have a city unless you have agriculture, right? Right. But there's problems when you have a city, the Bible will say, you know, it started by a murderer, right? And so, you know, but who are the great heroes are shepherds often. Moses and King David and Abraham are shepherds, right? And so, yes, there's definitely that polemic. And if we had a political reading of the Bible, we can get into that too. But we could say humans have occupations because we are able to have tools, right? That's there. The mastery, we are able to be, I think just in these two verses, we are able to be self-conscious that we're doing something that affects the earth, right?
And that it's our right to do it.
Well, so this verse might say it's our right to do it. This verse might say it's our right to do it. I'm not sure, or it's our task in life. Right? Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah, but let's emphasize that master it doesn't mean destroy it.
Doesn't say destroy.
Right.
Have dominion over it. It's like, you know, but it's as God's emissary kind of.
That's a question.
Yeah. So
So you're saying because we have rights, we have jobs, we have tools, we know how to use, and no other animal or insect, but they do.
Well, so right. So I don't know if our ancestors knew about gorillas, you know, or chimpanzees and things like that, but like, you know, but they knew, you know, I don't know if they had beavers there, but they knew that animals built things.
But
Yeah.
you have a beetles, which is billions of them, all different types.
Yeah.
And I've seen a beetle or the carcass cut out what portion, you know, so that the meat can be taken out. And go down to another portion of the carcass and cut out so that you could take the fur right off. And now human will do the same thing. A butcher would know how to do the same thing. But no, this beetle didn't go to school.
Right. So I think our ancestors would be very aware of that because they're very much closer to nature than we are, right? But like, what is it about a human? I think a human is able to have dominion over all, like, we can affect the earth in ways that the animals can't, right?
And be conscious and reflect.
And we can reflect on it, maybe.
So it's an old thing, but humans are the rational animal.
Right. So I don't know how rational we always are, and that's more of a question for Eric in a couple weeks too. But like, but I think having dominion over it is like we were created last. Actually, Shabbat was created last, and that puts a limit on humans' dominion. Right?
That's right.
Shabbat is there to say that you're not totally in control, right? And that's the, you know, the next verses are all about your Shabbat, and that's one of the limits on your dominion, right?
Think of it another way, that all the others, the animals, the fish, the birds of the sky, they're all self-sufficient. Humans are not. So humans need to be the boss because all the worker bees are already trained.
Right.
So the only job you can do is be boss.
Right. But also I want to reply to Stephanie too. I heard a science podcast and the person was talking. Now I don't know how accepted it is in the biology world, but he was saying actually when scientists said for, you know, since the Enlightenment that animals have instinct, they don't learn things. He's like, no, you know, parents teach the next, you know, especially mammals, teach them, and birds teach them how to do things. Right. Yeah. And so like when we say animals have instincts, it's usually because we haven't figured out how they learned it yet.
Right,
Right,
that's,
right.
we don't know what we don't know, but we are very arrogant.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Oh,
that's it.
Yeah,
That's
thanks.
thing reminded me of.
Maybe
this,
that's what
you
makes
know,
us,
I'm
well,
just gonna be
human.
the,
Yeah.
you know, management.
Arrogance.
Yeah, the arrogant, but arrogance comes with being being able to look inside inside yourself in some way, right?
But we don't really know if a lion has arrogance.
Right, yeah.
Right.
True, we don't,
We have
right,
no
so
idea
there's a
if the lion is like.
Yeah, there's a famous philosophical paper. I can't remember who wrote it right now, but it's about like it was written in the 70s, and like everybody since then has read it in college philosophy classes. You don't know what it's like to be a bat, right? You do not experience the world with echolocation, therefore you cannot know, I look at my dog and I try to think about what's he thinking right now, but there's no way I can experience that because I don't have the nose sensors, whatever the olfactory sensors that my dog has, and my dog experiences the world with their nose, and I experience the world with my eyes, right? Or whatever, in other ways, right? So we don't know that the lion doesn't have.
I don't know what it's to be like you.
That's also true.
So that's
True. We don't totally know,
No.
right? But we have people call it theory of mind, right? That we have a little bit of a sense because we have experience of what it means to be a human, right? Someone's putting in the chat just a second.
That just says
Oh,
LOL.
LOL. Thank you, Stacey.
By the way, Dennis over here quipped.
Yeah.
We do know that lions are arrogant because they have pride.
Yeah. So now let's turn to the second chapter of Genesis that has a different notion of a human. So the second chapter of Genesis, which religious people reconcile with the first chapter, but I want to read them separately. This is the Adam and Eve story. This is the Garden of Eden story. I didn't bring all of it because I want to get through a lot of stuff, but yeah, I probably should have brought more. I'm sorry. Okay, so the next text, Genesis 2, verse 7. Okay. So someone like to read that.
We're gonna go, Seth, please.
God formed the human from the souls, from his blowing into his nostrils the breath of life. The human becomes a living being.
Right. Okay. So first, God has this Elohim name, but also the Yud Hey Vav Hey name, which we say Adonai, right? So the Yitzer. So first, it uses a different word for create, but it's the same word as, but it's also a word for like forms, like an artist will form a vase, right? That's the word you use. God formed the human, right? Not just, it's a different word for create. The human, it says ha'adam here again. Afar mean ha'adama, dust from the earth, right? And it says here the soil humus, right? So humus, in Greek means soil, but it's also means it's where the word human comes from too. So they're making a pun from English about human to reflect the pun in Hebrew, which is Adama, Adam and Adama, right?
It's not implying plant material.
Well, is it implying plant material? I don't know. It's implying the same material that the earth is. We come from the same stuff of the universe, of creation. That's what it's implying, I guess, right? And that
Which is true scientifically, because we're built up of elements
Yeah,
that were, created in the Big Bang.
Right. So, as I said in my high holiday sermon, that, Joni Mitchell says we are stardust, we are gold, right? Yeah. So, Stephanie.
Okay, I have to go, that's why I want to think about. I think it's Edison, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's Edison who says that, like it's almost you were blown, God blows his spirit into
Right.
us.
Comes from the first, right? Yeah.
Right? And that soon he will be able to create a device where you can talk to each other through spirit, not through our physical,
Well, so good. So we're going to talk about this word spirit in a second, okay?
So that's why.
Okay.
I gotta go. But that's when I seen the blowing into bringing life into us, that we are more than this shell.
Let's talk about it. We'll talk about that. But
I'm
I know
gonna
you
get you on the.
you got to go. You watch us online, and I'm recording it too. Okay.
How long do we
Well, I want to go till 8:30. Is that okay?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. So we're not going to get through everything. Sorry. But we're having a good conversation. So who was reading? Ken, you were reading?
No, but I can.
No, who was reading? Sorry, who was reading?
Stephanie.
Oh, Stephanie. So Ken, you pick it up. Sorry.
Yeah, so
blowing in.
blowing into his nostrils the breath of life. the human became a living being.
Okay, so now let's look at some of these words. So God blows it, so God, like, it's a very graphic image, like the first creation story is not, there's no explanation of it, it's just God speaks and it was, right? So here, though, we have like God forming, like sculpting a body and then blowing into it, right? Okay, and this word, nishmat chayim, this breath of life, okay? That's what it means. So someone else, breath of life, and then ha'adam becomes nefesh haya, becomes a alive nefesh. Okay, so nishmat, which in when it's not connected to another noun, I mean nishama. This word is nishama, which means like a breathing life, and then nefesh means a life in the Bible. Now, later Judaism will say, well, it means soul, but I don't think the Bible.
That's what I thought.
The Bible doesn't have the notion that that Plato had of a soul that's outside the body. It means a full, complete, breathing human being. Nefesh. Nefesh is related to a more archaic word in Hebrew and ancient Near Eastern languages that means neck. Or gullet. I don't know what a gullet is exactly, but it's like some part of your, like your windpipe or something, right?
Picture it on a turkey.
Yeah, there you go. So it's like it means your breathing tube. That's it, right? So all has to do with breathing. God. I don't know what would be before resuscitate. Suscitates, I guess. God is that even a word? God suscitates this formless thing into life, right?
Ask the culinary.
Yeah. Right, but if you resuscitate, it means you bring you back to breathing, right? So suscitates, I don't know, we'll have to look it up. Brings this thing that was built from the stuff of the world into life through breath, right? And so breath becomes the symbol of life, okay? All right, so it's
not blood though.
Well, blood later. I don't think I brought any blood text. I didn't bring blood text, but yes, blood also becomes a symbol of life. Yeah.
Right, because the Noahide rules one of the few things that all humans have to do is not eat blood.
Not eat blood.
It's kosher,
Yeah, right. And that's why in kosher meat you have to drain the blood. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because that's and when you sacrifice an animal, you like left the blood somewhere else, right? It was a symbol of life, right? That God was in control of, not you. That's what it was about, right? And so, okay. So what's different between this human and the human from the first chapter?
This human breathes.
Yeah. Right. What else? What don't we see?
We don't see gender. We don't see
male. Gender. We'll see gender a little bit, but we don't see gender.
We also don't see that he's told to be the master.
No master, right? Yeah, like, and I'll explain some more of that, but I didn't bring the exact text. Okay, good. What else do we see? Image of God we don't see. The human's is a earthling. That's literally what human means. It's not image of God. It's you're built up from the earth.
Image of soil.
Right? What's that?
The image of soil.
You are a dirt man, a dirt being, right? Yeah.
No, what's a Hebrew word here? Because they feminize this,
For what?
For nefesh.
Nefesh chaya. Yeah, nefesh is the feminine word. You say nefeshot plural. But no, chaya means living. Is the noun? It's masculine, right? Okay. But like chayim comes from that's a noun. Right? Chaya is a verb. Okay, so yes, I didn't bring this text, but within the humans placed in a garden, it is told to tend to the garden, right? Not to master it, to tend to it. Right, so it's a different version of our relationship. It's a different vision of a human's relationship to the earth. But also, this garden has enough. Right, the human's told to just eat from the garden, not the animals. Just eat the fruits and vegetables. Right. So one vision, I didn't bring this text, but one vision of humanity is being vegetarian from the Torah, right? Or the pristine human is vegetarian, right? But we learn. Because someone asked about, there's no male, female. We learned here, verse 17 and 18. Someone say that, read that.
But as for the tree of knowledge of good and bad, you must not eat of it.
For as soon as you eat of it, you shall die.
Right, so he's called, so this, the being, the earth being was told you can eat all the fruits, but not this one, like that'll be a. Yeah, maybe I could have brought more text about that, but that's a different discussion. I went to the next verse.
God said it is not good for the human to be alone. I will make a fitting counterpart for him.
Yeah, so this is, right, so what is this telling us about humans?
We're gendered.
Okay, well, maybe gendered here, right? So it started with you, it's more obvious here that it starts with male, right?
We're
But
communal.
We're social.
we're social,
Yeah.
we're social,
Yeah.
right? So now how the story goes is God experiments and tries to see if the human can find companions with animals, and then finds that it seemed like in this story only one human with all the animals, and that didn't work out, and that's where the rib story comes from, right? I didn't bring that, but and that, so even though our first creation story has a hierarchy of humans mastering, this one has a different hierarchy.
But isn't there also something really important here, which is just this idea that we can die?
Yeah.
That what?
That we can die. So it's unclear if the human will die now unless he eats of this fruit, right? But yeah, humans, at least potentially in this text, are mortal, right? Are not a god, right? And that, like the earth, I guess, is like, or like the garden regenerates, right? Yeah, yeah. Arlene has her hand up. Yes.
Also, in the beginning, the first verse, we had dominion over the world.
Yeah.
Now we're told not to eat from this tree.
Right.
And so the rules are coming and the boundaries are coming.
There are rules, but like, I didn't bring the text, but the difference between the dominion and this one is also that you're living within harmony, not above it, right? You're living within it, right? And so it's two ways of seeing a human though, as, and maybe we're not meant to reconcile them, we're meant to balance them, maybe, right? That's why the Torah brings two different stories. Our ancestors had no problems with having seemingly contradictory things together, right?
Wait, isn't this like the beginning of where morality and free will or agency come into play?
Right, good, yes. So I brought another text to talk about that too. Okay, so good.
Jewish guilt.
Yeah, Jewish guilt, thank you. Well, yeah, good. Well, Jewish guilt is really like, in the traditional liturgy on the festivals, you say, it was because of our sins that the temple was destroyed, right? So like, it was our fault that our whole, civilization was taken over or something like that. That's Jewish guilt too, right? Okay, so, okay, so now this next text I brought comes after the Noah story, right? And so what's God's beef with humanity in the Noah story? Do you know?
I'm gonna guess with idolatry. I
No.
could go with idolatry.
No, not idolatry, they love God, but they're killing each other. The people are killing each other.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
people are killing each other. And so, so God wipes everybody out except Noah and Noah's family, wipes out the animals, starts over, right? But God comes to a realization. And what's God's realization? Okay, so verse 21, someone want to read that?
I can read. Smell. Oh, go ahead.
Adonai smelled the pleasing odor, and Adonai resolved.
So Noah had the sacrifice after, safety, and God, rebuilt the relationship with God, and God says,
Never again will I doom the earth because of humankind, since the devisings of the human mind are evil from youth, nor will I ever again destroy every living being as I have done.
so what is this saying about humans?
That we're evil from
We make this.
We're evil, well, not that we are evil, that we can think of evil things, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But God keeps messing up.
Yeah,
over
right.
and over.
So God,
give up.
God, like the Genesis God is an experimenter, or the God, right, from the Garden of Eden story through here is an experimenter. And God thinks that humans are going to be like these perfect things, but they're not, because what did God do? Created us with what?
Agency.
Agency.
Yeah.
That goes back maybe to the dominion or being created in the image of God. Is like, if God wants to have a being that can also create, they need to have agency. Right? And when you have agency, what does that mean?
You mess up.
You can mess up. right? And then God's got to live with it. So God's got to find a way to like reconcile that, right?
You'd make a very bad Calvinist.
I would make a very bad Calvinist.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yes, the whole Jewish project would make bad Calvinists, and that's why let the Protestants be Protestants, right? And so in Calvinism, if you know a little bit about Christian theology, Calvinism is like having a revival in Protestant churches, right? So, but yes,
That's a whole
built
different
into the
definition.
system that we have some kind of agency,
Yeah.
and that God lives with God. It takes God several chapters to live with.
But I think we can come very close to becoming gods.
Yeah.
If we had been able to live forever.
Yeah.
We would have been gods.
Yeah.
If we hadn't eaten, from the tree of good and evil,
Yeah.
and the tree of knowledge.
Right.
We would have been able to be equal.
Yeah. Right.
Agency, maybe God.
I think it's a very optimistic comment.
What's that? What's my
That if we live forever, we would become more godlike.
Well, so I think
we'd become a bunch of immortal fools.
Yeah, if we live forever, I think, my kind of one of my philosophies of life is like life only means something because we die.
Yeah.
Right. If you lived forever,
Get bored.
Meaning.
you would have no joy
Theseus,
in
right?
anything after a while.
Just ages, and that's all.
Right. And there's great science fiction works about that. And there's great, the meaning in life comes because it's limited, right? Love would mean nothing if you live forever. And that's why, like, I don't think the Bible there's hints here and there of like heaven. That's what, like, the good American version of heaven, good American Protestant version of heaven, I don't want a part of, right? Because that would get boring. But living forever is not something that the Bible is that interested in.
Doesn't I hear that God needs people.
Yeah, why does God need people? I don't know. That's the mystery. But that could be the people need people. So maybe God needs people because God's alone. There's no other God, right? I think that's it. Like, the Greek gods, they had fun with each other, but our God is lonely.
Maybe fish are boring.
Yeah, I mean, like fish don't talk. And like next week when we get to
They don't screw up as much.
right, when we get to the rabbinic notions of what it means to be human, we'll see a lot of stuff. I'll bring stuff about vocalizing. It's important.
Well, he could talk to whales and dolphins.
Yeah, right. So like, we are learning now more. We are learning now more that maybe animals, especially animals, have language, right? Yeah, may have language. And so but I don't know if our ancestors thought of that much, but like they knew that animals communicated with each other, right? But they saw we as humans our communication is different in some way. And it might just be more sophisticated and therefore more godlike. I don't know, right?
It's kind of interesting. We're not too far away from the AI theme, because here we are creating something that hopefully will become a perfect kind of machine.
Yeah.
But it's gonna mess up.
But it's gonna mess up.
And Moses.
Yeah, and God comes to realize that in the Genesis story.
Moses was not a speaker.
Right, yeah, that's a good point. So I want to bring I want to bring this text because I love this text. Deuteronomy 21. So here's like a totally different thing, not about creation, not about like the nature of a human, except maybe it kind of okay. So if any party is guilty of a capital offense and is put to death, and you impale the body on a stake, right? Okay, so that was something they did in the ancient world. You must not let the corpse remain on the stake overnight, but must bury it the same day. This is a criminal. We're not talking, for an impaled body is an affront to God. You should not defile the land that Adonai Elohecha is giving to you to possess. So again, this says something about what it means to be human. What do you think it says about what it means to be? What does it mean to be?
You smell it after 24 hours.
There you go. Thank you. But why isn't it affront? It's using a word affront. It's not saying it's gonna like bring flies. It's saying something else. It's an affront to God.
This thing about killing each other is offensive somehow to God.
Yeah, killing each other.
Doesn't really want to look at that for very long.
Right. And even the killer, though, this guy who got capital punishment, doing the capital punishment, something's wrong with that. And the person who did the killing to get the capital punishment is a human.
Right.
Yes.
How do you defile the land? What's that?
Defile the land is a kind of a euphemism in the Torah for like you bring your society has become corrupt, and therefore you are no longer deserving to live in the land of Israel. Right? The land of Israel in the Torah is not, it's always contingent on how the society acts. It is not, that's why I don't like using the eternal capital of, like, I love Jerusalem, it's the capital of Israel, but I don't like using the word eternal because that's unbiblical, because in the Bible, God has the prerogative to kick you out, right? Okay, so,
So is the key thing here impaling the body on a stake?
I think the key thing is defiant, is leaving it out too long is defiling it. The impaling was to like.
Because it says for an impaled.
Right,
body,
so the
it's not right.
impaling was not the bad thing here, I think, because the impaling was the deterrent for other people, right? You show like this was the public execution, right? The affront to God was then treating that impaled body as not a human anymore, right? That even the murderer is a human. It's about our bad choices. There's no such thing as like that, we'll talk about it now. What Hamas did in Israel was not inhumane. It was too human, right? Humans do that. They shouldn't do it. And then we shouldn't do bad things to we should see that person as a human, even the one who's not seeing us as a human. That's what it's saying, I think.
So this has nothing, it says you shall not defile the land. It's not that you want to put the body into the land.
No, you have to bury it. You have to bury it. Yeah.
So that it doesn't rot.
No, I don't think that's
There's none of that.
You're supposed to bury it because you bury people when they die, so as you don't see them as rotting away, because seeing them as rotting away is diminishing the image of God for you, right?
Okay, so it's
that's what I think it means. Defiling the land is not burying it. Burying it is what the land needs. Right. Okay. So the image, so what does it mean to be human? We have thoughts of being bad from our youth, that's what it says, and we can do very bad things. And even when we do very bad things, we are still what? Human. Right? Yeah. Okay.
But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be punished in a severe way.
Correct. There needs to be justice. Yeah. Let's look. Okay, let's skip forward. So I'm skipping forward to Proverbs 20:27. I don't know what page it's on in there. Page 4.
2027.
I love this verse. Sometimes we see it over an arc.
I don't see it.
It's on page 4. You see Psalm 8, it's on the back of the page of Psalm 8.
Okay, so some don't have.
Okay.
Well, there's one here.
Yeah, you didn't. Okay, so I'll read this. Ner Adonai Nishmat Adam. So it's using that same word about the blowing into the nostrils, the neshama. The breathing life of a human is the lamp of God, the ner, the lamp or the light of God. Kol hadre beten, revealing, it reveals the person's guts. That's what it means, right? But again, it's very embodied, so it's not like this separate soul. Like God's in our guts. It's kind of saying, right?
Right.
Yeah. So we are. So this is very much like here for our Catholic friend, very much an incarnational text. We are the incarnation of God here. It might be saying, right? Yeah. Okay. Here's another text I love that talks about what it means to be human a bit. Mi ha'ish hechafetz chayim ohev yamin lirotov. Who is this is not a gender neutral translation, I'm sorry. Who is the one who is eager for life? Who is the person? Ha'ish literally means a man, like gendered male, but who's the person who's eager for life or desires years of good fortune? So what is this calling on a human to be, right? Guard your tongue from evil, your lip from deceitful speech, shun evil and do good, seek amity, or it might mean integrity, and pursue it, right? It's shalom is the word, right? Bakesh shalom v'rod fehu. But it's again, we can choose one or the other, right? We have agency over our choices. Now, we can complicate agency later when we talk about more philosophy. Like, we are not totally free, right? But we have some kind of agency, right? Okay. And here's another very famous text that I think speaks to this too, right? From the prophet Micah, right? Kegid lecha adam ma tov, u'ma Adonai doresh mimcha. You have been told, O mortal, right? Adam, use the word here. Mortal is a good word for it. You've been told human, you've been told earthling, right? Adam, what is good and what God requires of you? Only to do justice, to love goodness, and to walk modestly with your God. Then your name will achieve wisdom, right? Okay. But what does this imply?
You can do the other.
You can do the other, yeah, right.
And it implies that there's a good chance you're gonna do the other.
Yeah, right, sure, for sure. I mean, the prophet
or whatever.
Bewailing the people for doing the other, right,
Exactly.
for a long time, right? So, yeah. Okay, good. Questions, comments, and then I want to look at Psalm 104 closely because it gives a beautiful vision of creation where humans fit in differently too. Okay, but we'll see that in a second. But any comments, questions so far? And again, this is not exhaustive. I'm just like picking random biblical texts that give us some insight into what it means to be human, ones that we could do in an hour, right? So, questions, comments. I'll ask you, like, how does this inform our scientific lives these days, right?
Well, it's an interesting question if you think about AI, is to what extent does AI have agency? On the one hand, it has its programming. On the other hand, it's capable in some capacity now of learning and perhaps a more capacity of learning in the future.
Yeah.
So if you think about sort of the things that make something human, is we often think about it in consciousness and like a science fiction thing, but is perhaps agency the indicia instead?
Right. Now, could our ancestor have been wrong that we don't actually have agency and we're just flesh covered computer programs too?
Well, your Calvinist friends would.
Right. So maybe a simple, I don't know enough about Calvinism, but it could be, I'm assuming it might be just a simple reading of that is like, we don't have agency, right? But like, philosophers are struggling with, do we have agency or not? So psychologists are struggling with, do we have agency or not, right? How much choice do we actually have, right? Now, can we say that a computer has a choice when confronted with options still, right? I don't know.
Yeah, we can't overdo the Calvinists though, because they're only predetermining whether or not the soul is going to be saved.
Right.
They're not predetermining things that are being done on the earth.
I see. Okay.
So you have agency.
You have agency.
So
Yeah.
it seems like we've also progressed here from like these really concrete things like murdering each other to these more vague ideas
Notions of
justice and goodness.
Yeah. And I could have brought more text that fleshed out what justice might be for the Israelites, right? But yeah. So sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah.
I just think it's a very different feeling.
Right, and I guess more abstract too, and so maybe partly what it means to be human is we have an abstract notion of justice and goodness, right? And so, this is not Plato with the abstract forms of perfect justice, but maybe it's getting close to that.
Right. I mean, killing another human is pretty clear what that is.
Right.
But
what is justice?
doing justice is very, that's somebody's opinion.
Right.
Really.
Somebody's opinion. I mean, but maybe maybe the prophet was saying it's God's opinion. You have to figure out what that is. Maybe that, I'll help you figure out what that is. Right. Okay.
I also think that with AI, particularly with the latest iteration, GPT-4, that we're getting very close to something that appears to have agency.
Yeah.
Appears.
Right.
And what's the difference between appearance and reality?
Right. What's the difference between it? That's a great question as we keep going. What's the difference between appearance and reality? And and people say perception is reality. Like the thing that you experience is the only way for you to take in reality, right? And now, although humans can then reflect on it, right, and change their mind, right? So, I see you, Jeff. I'll get Jeffrey. I'll get you in a second. we can reflect on things, but is that just our mind tricking us too? I don't know.
And who's to say that carbon-based is better than silicon-based?
Yeah, 100%. Although, you know, chapter 2 of Genesis likes carbon-based a lot, right? Although I guess in the dirt, there is silicon in the dirt, right? So we have that.
You know, in fact, most of the minerals in the earth are silicon based, because just like life forms carbon bonds with things, silicons run level down in the periodic table.
Yeah.
And so when you think about minerals, silicon is the way that binds sort of all the other elements. This is the mineralogy is like organochemistry for geology majors.
I see. So, but we have silicon in us, I guess, or, you know, especially like your grandkids eating sand or whatever. There you go. That's silicon. All right. So, Jeffrey, yes. You have to unmute. Sorry, I muted you by accident.
No. One of the things going all the way back to that Genesis in the image of God, one of the interpretations of that traditionally is the ability to choose, to willfully have freedom of choice.
Yes, and we'll definitely, I think we might see that later when we look at especially medieval philosophy. But yeah, so the different Jewish commentaries, well, what does this image of God mean? And I think for the biblical author, it meant more of the embodiedness and we're all like the kings of the ancient Near East, but it's also we're creators, and it's also, I definitely think it's about choice and agency too.
Yeah. There's been thousands of years and lots of different opinions and lots of debate on that whole topic.
And I think it's all in there in those two verses.
I just wanted to get back to what you were saying about death, because to me, that is going to school, college in the 80s, you know, existential was a big thing.
Yeah.
So the idea of death, really, we're one of the only animals that understand that and informs our entire existence. And to me, that's something very big about being human. And deal with that and deal with the absurdity of it. So
the absurdity of it, like the great existential Camus said, you know, I'm paraphrasing it, like you have to decide every day whether to commit suicide or not, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's your choice, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, what is meaning? It's what you do to prevent yourself from killing yourself. I think you said that too.
Yeah, something like that, right? And so yeah, it's.
No, thank you.
But death is that, like,
we're conscious of death.
Being conscious of death is partly what gives human life meaning, right? I would
human.
And what makes us human, but also what gives human life meaning, I think, and because. You know, like I could bring the words in the Psalms that say, like, the dead can't praise God, right? That's in Hallel, one of the Hallel songs. The dead can't praise God. Like when you're dead, you're not a human anymore, right? That I think that's what the Bible's saying now. Like different religious traditions and later Jewish tradition sees that differently. You know, they have more of a notion of eternal life, and we can take that or reject that. But like the Bible, I think it's pretty clear, except in a few instances, that we're not going to go there, right? You're going to die, and your afterlife for the Bible a lot of times is your descendants, is your afterlife.
Right. And I think
that's your name, as you say, right?
The question is, as AI goes on further, are those entities going to have that conception?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely, I hope we ask, you know, and Jason's here, like, I'm going to put it on your checklist. We'll ask, like, you know, there are companies now marketing themselves to say, this is mom's eternal life. We're gonna record all of her texts, get some recordings of her voice, and you know, the AI will figure out try to be her, and we'll talk to you. And is that afterlife? Or you know, like Ray Kurzweil talked about uploading his mind to the cloud. Is that eternal life? Is that you? Right? That's questions we got to ask, because it's getting closer, right? So, but I would say our biblical ancestors didn't ask that, because they thought when you died, you died. Okay, someone has their phone up here. Is that Stephanie there with her hand up?
Yes. There was a scientist who fell in love with this lady, and he had one of those androids. Like, he took all her information, he made an AI android. Yeah. At the time, I think it was probably about 5 years ago, he only had the head part made. Yeah. And you could see her talk and her you know, expressions, but the lady was still alive. Wow. I think they interviewed her on 60 Minutes. I think they interviewed the lady, and it was kind of creepy.
Yeah, yeah, and so we have some kind of age factor to it, right? But there's a philosophical thought experiment that, like, if I made a clone of me and uploaded all of my memories into that being, would that be me?
No.
Let's say we uploaded all my memories into that being and then killed me. Is that person now me? Because then they're living on where I left off.
So,
but
Right?
it's only your
But this is not this class. Sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you don't need a clone, you just need another body.
Right. You just need another body.
But you could.
I remember this. Sorry.
You could,
I hope to get to this later again.
Grow
I keep bringing up things, but maybe we'll talk about it later. But I remember when I was like, I don't know, 10. There was this, the CBS Sunday night movie or whatever was this movie about a woman was in two women were in horrible accidents, and they saved the brain of one of them and implanted it, put it in the other one, and then gave the live person with the brain, even though she looked different, to the husband of the other person. And that, but I remember at 10, I'm like, oh, this is an interesting conundrum here. But so this is a body with the memories of another body.
Yeah.
Right.
So the book Clara and the Sun sort of skirts that issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let's end with Psalm 104, because it gives a beautiful vision of creation. That back to the we'll go back to the dominating notion from the first verses we read, or think back to that and see what this is. Okay. Someone read. And this is a gendered translation, I think. So yeah.
Bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord my God, you are very great. You are clothed in glory and majesty, wrapped in a robe of light. You spread the heavens like a tent cord. He sets the rafters of his lofts in the waters, makes the clouds his chariot, moves on the wings of the wind. He makes the winds his messengers, fiery flames his servants. He established the earth on its foundations, so that it shall never totter. You made the deep cover it as a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. They fled at your blast, rushed away at the sound of your thunder. Mountains rising, valleys sinking, to the place you established for them. You set bounds they must not pass, so that they never again cover the earth. You make springs gush forth in torrents. They make their way between the hills, giving drink to all the wild beasts. The wild asses slake their thirst. The birds of the sky dwell beside them and sing among the foliage. You water the mountains from your lofts. The earth is sated from the fruit of your work. You make the grass grow for the cattle and herbage for man's labor, that he may get food out of the earth, wine that cheers the hearts of men, oil that makes the face shine, and bread that sustains man's life. The trees of the Lord drink their fill, the cedars of Lebanon, his own planting, where birds make their nests. The stork has her home in the junipers.
Okay, I want you to stop there. What does it say about humans?
We're insignificant.
We're insignificant. We're just part of this whole thing. Right? Just like all the mountains and the rivers and the animals and everything else. We're just we're not at the center. We're just part of it. We could use the creation, though it says, to eat and to bathe and things like that. But we're not so great. Keep going.
The high mountains are for wild goats. The crags are a refuge for rock badgers. He made the moon to mark the seasons. The sun knows when to set. You bring on darkness, and it is night, when all the beasts of the forest stir. The lions roar for prey, seeking their food from God. When the sun rises, they come home and couch in their dens. Man then goes out to his work, to his labor until the evening. How many are the things you have made, O Lord? You have made them all with wisdom. The earth is full of your creations. There is the sea, vast and wide, with its creatures beyond number. Living things small and great. There goes ships and Leviathan that you formed to sport with.
Right. Leviathan is this ancient sea monster, but God created it and God could play with it, right? It's not scary to God, right? Okay.
All of them look to you to give them their food when it is due. Give it to them, they gather it up. Open your hand, they are all well
The,
satisfied.
the animals have a relationship with God too, it says here, right? In this version of creation. Yeah.
Hide your face, they are terrified. Take away their breath, they perish. And turn again into dust. Send back your breath, they are created. And you renew the face of the earth. May the glory of the Lord endure forever. May the Lord rejoice in his works. He looks at the earth and it trembles. He touches the mountains and they smoke. I will sing to the Lord as long as I live. All my life I will chant hymns to my God. May my prayer be pleasing to him. I will rejoice in the Lord. May sinners disappear from the earth and the wicked be no more. Bless the Lord, O my soul. Hallelujah.
Yeah. It's a very different version of creation and our place in it, right?
Yeah, so it really goes away from that very first.
Yeah. So like the Bible is a collection. It's not just one story, right? And you know, different religious people and texts have tried to reconcile everything, but you don't need to. You can see all of it. So Tanakh, where that's from, that was Psalm 104, right? The 104th Psalm, the book of Psalms.
It's interesting there because in some ways the animals have it better, like they're fed by God. Humans have to go out and labor.
Go out and work. Yeah. So it could be commenting back in the Garden of Eden story, or that, you know, God says you have to go and labor, but it could be because it could be commenting also humans know that they're laboring and maybe the animals don't. I don't know. But yeah, we think we're the dominator, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes when we take that too seriously, we have trouble. You know, we want to, but sometimes we need to be humbled to say, you know what, we're just part of this whole universe too, right?
And for many, many, many thousands of years, hunter-gatherers got their food pretty much given to them by God.
Yeah, and well, they weren't.
They hardly work.
Well, right, they didn't work yes, but there weren't a lot of them either, right? And
that may have been better.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of humans, and for hundreds of millions of years, there were no humans, right?
Yes.
We as humans have only been around for what is it?
200,000. Our species, yeah.
We as city dwelling humans have only been around for 10,000 years, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you know, we still might be changing.
Is it, do you think,
Remember, it took us a long time to invent the wheel.
Yeah, that's a long time to invent the wheel.
I just wonder, do you think our ancestors' experience was more like the psalm than it was having dominion?
The sun, right. So I think that's the person who wrote the psalm. He had an experience of awe and how small he was compared to the universe. Yeah,
and how he's pushed around, or how humans are.
Well, I don't know. I didn't see pushed around. I see a contentment in their place in the whole order of being, right? Yeah.
Wine cheers the heart.
Yeah. Hey, look, we got a good thing going that we could make wine and olive oil for oil, you know, olive oil meant like a lotion, right? And it's a good life. Yeah.
I still remember the one time when we were in Alaska and were kayaking and got separated from the group and ended up in this cove. And it was so serene and quiet and huge trees and just filled with bald eagles.
Yeah.
And I truly, it was one of the most spiritual moments. I truly felt so insignificant.
Yeah.
I was just like a speck. And, and who and where did all this come from?
Yeah.
And how did it come together so perfectly? It was.
Yeah, that's the writer of that song.
I think about that more and more the older I get. I remember that moment.
Thank you, wonderful. The writer of Genesis 1 was asked, but the writer of Genesis 1 was asking a different question. The writer of Genesis 1 was realizing, you know what, we got power. What do we do with it, right? And the writer of Genesis 2 was saying, you know, be careful with your power, you know. And definitely the writer of Psalm 104 is saying, this is just all amazing to be alive, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And part of this all, right? Back to, you know, we're specks of stardust from the Big Bang.
I don't think it's.
And every time you welcome a new baby.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
what is more miraculous?
Right, yeah, wonderful.
What do we know about the timeline between when
Each was written.
each was written? Yeah.
I mean, that makes, PhD dissertation, right? So I don't know, like, Genesis 1 was written by the priestly source, probably, which people would argue, some say it was pre-exilic, some say it was post-exilic. So let's say maybe the latest 2,500 years ago. I don't know. Genesis 2 might be older than that. That's the garden story. Psalm 104, I don't know, but it seems more in the vein of Genesis 2 before the eating of the apple, right? Or it's not an apple, eating of the fruit, right? I don't know. Arlene, you have the last word. But you have to unmute yourself to have the last word.
To answer that question, I think you have to go to AI.
Yeah, right, yeah. I have books that can answer that question, but like what I want to, but what I like when I bring different biblical texts together is to have them talk to each other. And like, even though they were written at different times, I can say they're written at different times, but they're put together all at one time to talk to each other. Right? Yeah. As long as we listen, right, they're talking to each other. All right, friends.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
We are going to look at more texts that ask similar questions, but this next time from the ancient rabbis and how they play with biblical texts and what they do with it. Okay. So have a good evening.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
I don't think it's a coincidence.